The ongoing torment inflicted by Theo Silverton continues to escalate in Coronation Street. Even the idea of provoking his partner's temper now leaves Todd Grimshaw trembling. The manipulative abuser has gradually stripped away Todd's confidence and autonomy through a damaging blend of psychological manipulation, coercion, and physical aggression. Lately, he has tightened his grip further by taking control of the household finances. Since the tragic Corrie crash claimed the life of Todd's close friend and former partner Billy Mayhew, Todd has been overwhelmed by sorrow, which has only fueled Theo's paranoia about being abandoned, especially as he secretly allowed Billy to die. Following the funeral, the cruelty has worsened. Theo thrives on belittling others, making them feel inadequate and powerless. This tactic has enabled him to dictate Todd's movements, social life, and even his words. Just as he pressured Todd into strict dieting and exercise by shaming his appearance, Theo has now convinced him he is incapable of managing money. In degrading moments, Todd felt compelled to accept a joint bank account while Theo destroyed his credit cards. With full control over the finances, Todd must ask permission for basic expenses like groceries. When Theo briefly visited his mother in Doncaster, he left Todd with barely enough to survive. Another calculated move designed to keep friends such as George Shuttleworth and Sarah Platt unaware of the truth. Todd understands all too well that any suspicion of overspending could trigger terrifying repercussions. In forthcoming episodes, those fears edge closer to reality as Todd is left completely penniless. As Theo's birthday approaches and he returns home earlier than expected, Todd requests money to purchase a gift. Theo hands over £200 but makes it clear the amount must also cover the cost of a celebratory dinner. Panic sets in when Todd receives a message stating his account is overdue and services will remain suspended until payment is made. Suddenly, he urgently needs more cash, and his safety may depend on securing it. The program has hinted that this storyline may end fatally as it builds toward a gripping murder mystery. A recent flash-forward scene showed Theo among 5 potential victims at the wedding of Carla Connor and Lisa Swain, where Betsy Swain discovers a lifeless body. The same episode also teased a dramatic moment with Todd clutching a knife, seemingly driven to his limit by Theo's relentless cruelty. Will Todd endure another outburst, and will Theo make it out alive? Tracy is holding on to explosive information in Coronation Street, but will she reveal it? Of everyone on the cobbles, Tracy Barlow is hardly known for discretion, particularly if spilling the truth would cause serious trouble for her rival, Cassie Plummer. The hostility between Tracy and Cassie runs deep. Their long-running clash has been so intense that it is surprising it hasn't ended in catastrophe at the Rover's return. Tracy's resentment began when Cassie was exposed for secretly drugging her father, Ken Barlow, in order to make him reliant on her while posing as his carer. Matters only deteriorated when Cassie began a relationship with Tracy's former husband, Steve McDonald. To be fair, Steve's involvement with Cassie came after Tracy had betrayed him with a footballer, but that did little to ease the animosity. Since Cassie became part of the Barlow household through her romance with Steve, tensions have only escalated. Tracy is fiercely loyal to her family, and their bitter exchanges have produced some unforgettable verbal showdowns, with both women weaponizing each other's checkered histories. One particularly cutting moment saw Tracy criticize Cassie's attempts at redemption, only for Cassie to retaliate with a sharp remark about the fire that resulted in Cal Nazir's death. Their sparring matches are among the most entertaining confrontations on the street. The feud reignited last December when Tracy overheard Cassie criticizing her over the taxi radio system. Determined to get even, she tried to undermine Cassie's job at streetcars. So when damaging information about Cassie unexpectedly falls into Tracy's hands, she can barely contain her satisfaction. Recently, friction has centered on Jim McDonald, Steve's estranged father. After learning that Jim was terminally ill, Steve struggled with whether to reconcile before it was too late. Cassie urged him to mend fences, while Tracy reminded Steve of his father's long history of disappointments, including a particularly cruel deception involving Liz McDonald and a fabricated story about a girlfriend. In the end, Steve sided with Tracy and chose not to reconnect, instead spending time with close friends Tim Metcalf and Ben Driscoll. In upcoming scenes, Cassie views Steve's decision to move forward as the ideal moment to propose, but events take a tragic turn. She excitedly plans a romantic setup at Victoria Gardens with Tim's assistance. However, just as Steve arrives, he receives a devastating phone call from the hospital. Jim has passed away. The news leaves him shattered. Realizing that proposing in the immediate aftermath would be inappropriate, Cassie abandons her plan and offers comfort instead. Later, during a gathering at the Rovers to honor Jim's memory, Tracy notices that Cassie is unusually dressed up. When she spots her discreetly placing something into Mary Taylor's pocket, her curiosity intensifies. As Steve and Cassie discuss funeral arrangements with Ben, Tracy pieces together the truth. Steve has no idea Cassie intended to ask him to marry her. The real question now is whether Tracy will keep this revelation to herself, and given her track record, that seems highly unlikely. The truth is, closing in on Jodie and Coronation Street as incriminating proof finally comes to light. Jodie Ramsey's disturbing behavior escalates again next week, but her time in Weatherfield could be running out when a watchful youngster uncovers something suspicious. Soon after her arrival, it was obvious that Jodie harbored deep resentment toward her sister, Shona Platt, who moved out years ago after becoming a teenage mother. At first, it seemed Jodie's mission was to sabotage Shona's happiness, yet she has also taken pleasure in unsettling others around the street. Recently, she butted heads with Bernie Winter after being reprimanded for messing up a cafe order. In retaliation, Jodie encouraged Mal Roper to believe there was romantic tension between him and Bernie. It has since emerged that she also trespassed in Bernie's home and defaced family wedding photographs by cutting Bernie out of them. One altered picture was placed in a box Jodie keeps hidden, alongside various odd trinkets that resemble keepsakes from her misdeeds. Sharp-eyed viewers may have noticed that the collection includes a crucial clue linked to another Shaken resident. Brian Packham has been deeply upset since discovering that his treasured copy of The Woman in White vanished. He caused a scene when he pointed the finger at Hope Stape, who firmly denied any involvement. His suspicion was understandable, considering Hope had overheard him and Rita Tanner discussing her troubled upbringing and criminal father on the day the book disappeared. Given her past behavior and fascination with chaos, even her sister Ruby Dobbs assumed she was responsible. However, it later became clear that Jodie was behind the theft, seemingly reveling in the distress she caused. In scenes ahead, the Platt family gather at the hospital to support David and Shona while Harper undergoes surgery. When they learn that Harper has experienced a minor complication, David lashes out and tells everyone to leave. Jodie embraces David before stepping outside, where she encounters a new mother who mistakes her for Shona and assumes David is her husband. Whether Jodie corrects the misunderstanding remains uncertain. Later, Lily Platt stumbles upon Jodie's hidden box beneath the stairs. Inside, she finds the altered photograph of Bernie and Brian's missing novel, leaving her confused and concerned. At the same time, the woman from the hospital approaches Jodie to ask about Harper. As Jodie speaks as though the child is hers, she is startled to realize Shona is standing directly behind her. Julia Goulding has hinted that although the situation raises suspicion, Jodie's quick thinking allows her to smooth things over. Shona, emotionally drained, lacks the strength to challenge her sister and chooses to accept her explanation. When Jodie returns home, Lily questions her about the photograph and the stolen book, leaving Jodie scrambling to justify the incriminating discoveries. Coronation Street airs on weeknights at 8:30 p.m. on ITV1 and is available to stream on ITVX.